right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Entrepreneurship Sucks podcast with Kevin and Josh. Today, we're here with a really good friend of ours. He's a visionary entrepreneur and founded Technician Find, where he's staffed hundreds of automotive shops with thousands of technicians since 2017, helping them staff and keep their business running. And he's the host of the Blue Check Shop podcast. Welcome to the show, Mr. Chris Lawson. Chris,
Hey,
how you feeling today, man?
it's great to be here. Thank you. Feeling great.
Abs- Great.
Happy to have you on, man. So we like to kick things off the same way with every episode. Obviously, the name of the podcast, Entrepreneurship Sucks, has a different reaction from everybody we invite. So we like to hear,
Yeah. What does
what does
entrepreneurship mean
Entrepreneurship
to me?
Sucks mean
That's
to
the
you, Chris?
question, right? I love what you guys do with this because does seem sunny and rosy in most of the places when you're talking about entrepreneurship. So I love the approach you guys are taking. For me, when I thought about this, because I've listened to a bunch of your episodes, and I was thinking, what is it? What does it really mean to me? And I always go back to Tony Robbins, and Tony Robbins talks about we do more to avoid pain than to gain pleasure. And for me, entrepreneurship is my way of avoiding pain. The pain is, I can't imagine anything worse than going back and sitting in a cubicle, having somebody tell me what to do, having somebody tell me how much money I can make, have somebody tell me whose ass I have to kiss in order to make promote in the world and move up in the business. It's just that lack of freedom. So that's what entrepreneurship means for me. If I've got to deal with employees and I've got to deal with angry customers and I've got to deal with revenue and, lay awake at night sometimes trying to think of how I'm going to make payroll, that's the price I got to pay. But man, I tell you, there's a bigger pain for me, and that's sitting in a cubicle somewhere.
That's right. Spot on.
Yeah, man. I love it. It's funny, like the the way that you like the perspective that you just took on that actually just like kind of like lit up some memories for me. I just realized that I always say that we're all born entrepreneurs, but some of us accept the calling and some of us never do, right? But I just look back at like my corporate career. Like I've worked for 4 Fortune 100 companies in my 20s, top sales rep in all of Southern New England for Verizon Wireless. And I remember my mother-in-law one day, she's like, you get fired from every frickin' job you work at. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm the top sales rep. And I'm like, I get fired on purpose because it gives me the time freedom to decide where I want to work next, and I can collect unemployment. I'm like, but I'm thinking about what you said about like whose ass I got to kiss, and like I'm the top earner. Like I'd show up late. Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't do a lot of the things that are like required of me in my role and stuff. And I'm looking back and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
I've always been
100%.
acting like an
100%. It's
entrepreneur. I
so
just didn't
funny
have a
because I've
business
got a
yet.
good buddy who's an amazing salesman. He does enterprise
Yeah.
sales, enterprise SaaS sales. And it's so funny because his career path, to me, I looked at his
Mhm.
career path, and he makes plenty of money, tons of money. But he's always going from company to company. It's like every 6 months I talk to him, and he's with another company. He's like, the CEO pissed me off, or, the chairman of the board
Mhm.
pissed me off.
Yeah. Dude, I swear to God, you just said like I was gonna say like, but the times that I've got
Yep.
myself fired is
Yep.
because just
So
somebody pissed me
true.
off and I
So
just
true.
didn't want to work with them anymore.
Yep.
Like you can't fire, like you can get rid of clients that drive you nuts or whatever. Like if you have business partners as an
Totally.
entrepreneur and things don't work out, like oh well, so on,
Yep.
whatever, you can move on. But like, yeah, that was the prison, right? Like I was living like an entrepreneur in my mind and
Yeah.
in my
Yeah.
conduct, but I was in the prison of a
I
corporate
know.
environment. Yeah, every time I
Yeah,
get
I
myself
know.
fired on purpose every time. Like, okay, I'm out of here, but I'm not gonna quit. Quitting's for dummies. Getting fired is the life hack, dude. I'd have 2, 2, 3, 6 months to figure out what my next job opportunity was, and
Right.
I'd collect the money that I paid into the
Right.
unemployment while I
Right.
was working. Like,
Right.
why would you quit and
Yeah.
for another job
Yeah.
while you're
Yeah.
working
And
full
It
time? Like,
totally
that's a
is.
pain in the
that's
ass.
that's Chris's secret recruiting strategy.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know what, dude? Like, we
Hmm.
talked about like your recruiting process and like about like getting A players, right? You could probably just like hire some people to just annoy the A players at their
Yeah,
current
that's
role
so
to kind
funny.
of push them
Hire a
through the next
heckler to
stage
come
in the
in.
Yeah,
process.
just a heckler.
Yeah. So we were talking to a client yesterday, and he's like, one of their marketing strategies is they will hire VAs to call their prospective client that they want to buy their product, and they'll have them call like say, hey, like I saw this on like ABC News or whatever, like do you carry this? And they'll call and
Wow,
ask a few
that's really
times
interesting. That's like
while they're
taking
in
a
the
page out of the
pipeline
retail book,
stage.
where they have people call a store and say, "Hey, do you carry such and such product?"
Yeah,
Wow, that's really clever. I love that. I
secret
love that.
shoppers. Yeah. 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 So that's gonna
Yeah.
be a fun thing. We're gonna attempt that with him and see
Yeah,
what it
yeah.
does. I might
That's what they do
throw it
with
across the board
the
for other
pharmaceutical
clients too.
companies
We'll
too.
see.
So,
But
you always ask, why did they run? Yeah, it's so funny. I always wondered.
yeah,
I was like,
he's in the
why do they
medical
advertise
space.
for pharmaceuticals on TV? I
Yeah.
mean, it's not like you can go to the CVS and get this drug, but it's because they asked their doctor about it. So, yeah, very
Yep.
interesting.
Asking if you have it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. That's why on the commercial they're like, ask your
That's so
doctor about
funny.
Ozempic.
Yeah.
I don't know why Ozempic is the one I thought of. But Chris, let's get right into it, man. Where did it all start for you, right? Like, so like we had Brian Delaney on a few weeks ago, and he's like, I caught the entrepreneurial bug when I was in third grade. I was
Yeah.
selling Jolly Ranchers in third
Oh,
grade, like,
that's so funny.
for profit.
I
So
it
like, where
it
did it all
kind of
start
started
for
for me
you?
in third grade too. I wasn't as much of an entrepreneur, I would say, other than I was just trying to figure out what a side hustle would be. And the side hustle in third grade is something you do outside of school.
Mm.
But for me, I remember, I'll never forget this guy. Gosh, I got to look him up because I haven't thought about him in
Yep.
years. Eric Herbst. Eric Herbst and I used to get his dad's Denver Post, and we used to look at the penny stocks on the playground. And one summer we decided we wanted to invest in penny stocks because we wanted to get rich. So we basically mowed lawns all summer, and that's what we wanted to do. And then we did odd jobs. There was a guy that was fixing up a restaurant in the area, and he needed all this stuff torn out and dragged out. So Eric got us wrangled into that. So we ended up doing that for a few weeks, and we just did whatever we could. And I think that's really when the bug hit me, because I said, you know what, I can make money, doing things that aren't kind of traditional. And that was interesting to me because
Mm.
we never had money. I mean, when I was growing up, my parents were really clever. They figured out where to live that was like the
Mm.
the cheapest area of the nicest, area. And there'd be like this little tiny corner where there was this little,
Mm.
row of houses that was part of a bigger, nicer area. And then I ended up going to private school on scholarship. And it's like everywhere, all growing up, everybody around me had so much more money than we did. And I always thought, gosh, I really want to figure this thing out. Yeah. It puts something in it gives you
Likewise.
this hunger and this drive. It's like, hmm when you have a
Especially when
3-day
you go to
vacation and
school
you
with
sat and
everybody,
watched
right?
cartoons for 3 days, and people
Hmm.
come back with their goggles, their ski goggle tans,
Yep.
because they went to their house in Vail and they skied for
Yep.
3 days, or they went to Cancun for 3 days, and
Hmm.
it's like, wow, this is a different world, man. I didn't know people lived like that.
Hmm. Yeah. Yep.
Oh,
All my
wow.
friends were in ski club. They had a ski club in my school in middle school, and I was the only one out of my friends
Exactly.
group that like
Right.
parents were like, "Yeah, right,
Yeah.
dude. Couple $1,000 for like
Yep.
snowboard equipment. Yeah, right. And then you're gonna outgrow it next year and need more. Not
Mm-mm.
happening. There was
Mm-mm.
no
I totally hear
eBay
you.
or Facebook
All my
Marketplace or
friends,
anything back then.
I didn't, the first time I went skiing, I was 18. It is funny because all my friends grew up skiing, and I went and they were laughing at me. I'm wearing jeans, and
Mhm.
they laughed. They go, "Why'd you wear jeans to ski?" And they said, "You're going to be miserable at the end of the day." And I was. My jeans got all wet, and then they iced over, and I was totally miserable. Oh
Yep.
Oh
God,
yeah, man.
it was
Yeah.
horrible.
Soaked,
It was horrible. But man,
crunchy.
that puts a fire in your belly,
Yeah,
though.
that's that. Yep, for sure. Yeah, we just actually were on a call with someone I grew up in my hometown with. and she's a clinical therapist now. And we were talking about how, like, the resilience of like the way
Yep.
that we grew up, and like just like the pressure that makes diamonds, right? Like Sarah Allred just interviewed me on her podcast a few days ago, and she's like, we're in Josh Forty's coaching program together, and she's like, I've never met somebody who is so unapologetically themselves, like caring, but also doesn't give two F's what
That's
anybody
nice.
says or thinks, and just goes and
That's
gets
awesome.
after it.
That's
I'm like, yeah,
awesome.
you should see the
True,
way I grew
true
up. You'd
compliment.
understand better. Yeah. So you were penny stocks. Yeah, definitely appreciate it. She made me cry a couple times on the podcast. It was not cool. Um, so penny stocks, mowing lawns, stuff like that, and then like,
Yeah.
so what'd you
So
do? Like high
in
school, like
high
college,
school,
like,
I just
walk us
I
through.
had jobs. So I've been working consistently since I was 11 years old. I had a paper route at 11, and I mean, it's funny to look back on it, but man, I got out,
Mhm.
4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. I got out, threw my papers, did my route, and then went to middle school and did my thing. And I just pretty much I was focused a little bit on high school. I mean, I wasn't a great student, but I always knew I wanted to do something different, and I didn't really get a chance to do something different until much later. I mean, I'd always worked, but the next entrepreneurial endeavor that I had was real estate. So I got my real estate license in my early 20s and figured out some cool
Okay.
stuff. Um, I did
Did you do
sales here
any
and there,
sales
but it
before
was
real
just very
estate?
short lived stuff. So I went out. I mean, gosh, this is a funny story. I went out and I saw this
Yeah.
ad and it said, you can make six figures selling meat. And I was like, selling meat. So I went to this guy and it was the funniest story. Oh God, this guy. So I showed up at his office. I took
I
the bus to his
remember
office
that.
because I didn't have a car. I took the bus to his office. It was all the way across town. And I went in and the guy's like, hey, come take a drive with me. And we go out to his car and he's driving this Corvette. And it was a pretty new Corvette. And his license plate was Meat Man. And he takes me to this office complex. And basically it's just, that was the interview was, hey, we're going to walk into this office complex and we're going to cold call all of these places and we're going to try to sell them meat. And he's got this cooler full of meat in his trunk. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy.
Mhm.
And it just, I said, yeah, I don't know
So,
if this stuff is for me. Exactly.
yeah, like
Yeah.
USDA
It
choice,
was
freaking
just
like,
funny.
you know, learning
It totally was.
Wagyu, like all that
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And some
Yeah.
people
He's
would
like,
go door to door
he's
doing
like,
it.
yeah,
I
you could
remember.
go door to do
Yeah.
this, but that's for suckers.
I'm
If you
gonna
go
make
into the office and you do
pause.
it right, then you can sell, 10 people. Yeah. In one shot.
Yeah. You could clean up in a whole office
Exactly.
building. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
One to many
Yeah.
selling, like
So that was
before
funny.
Russell.
That was a good one. Very
I love
short-lived.
it. I
Very
love it.
short-lived. I
How
said, man,
long
this
was
isn't for
that, short
me.
lived, or like?
This is craziness here.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
weren't you weren't into slinging the meat?
No.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah.
So
It
then
went
you got into
well,
real
but
estate,
I
right?
didn't
And so
like
how'd
it.
that go? What,
I was
did
a
you?
young kid. I think 23 when I got into real estate,
Mm,
and I learned as much as I could. My broker was an amazing guy. Troy was his name, Troy Jackson. I'll never forget him. He said, "Chris, I'm going to hire you. I'm going to take a chance on you," and because I just got my license, and he said, "But you have to do something for me before you show up for work the first day. You have to read Think and Grow Rich, and you have to read Psycho-Cybernetics. So you have to read those two books. So Psycho-Cybernetics by Matthew Maltz,
mm,
and phenomenal book. And Think and Grow Rich. I'm sure all of your listeners have read that one. I
yep.
read it every year, and I've read
Yeah.
it every year since. So I've read it dozens of times. And those two books really
Mm,
changed the way that I thought about what I could do and what I could accomplish. So I was actually top listing agent of the office for a couple months, and there were 40 agents in the office, and I was the youngest agent by 10 years. And it was funny because I mean I wasn't consistently top, but they couldn't figure out how I got to be top in those 2 months. And it's because I applied some stuff that I'd learned
Mhm.
through the process of the training and got some good results. So that really taught me, hey, look,
Through the training that they gave you, or
it
through
was a little both
Napoleon Hill,
because
or and the
I think psycho-cybernetics
psycho-cybernetics book?
and Think and Grow Rich were more mindset.
Okay.
Yeah.
The training gave you the tactics. Yeah, and the books gave you like the mindset and the principles that helped you like
Yeah,
actually
yeah, exactly. And
assimilate the
they had
training
this
in a better
training
way than
room
most
where they
people
had all these
probably, right?
videotapes of all these top producers
Yeah.
from everywhere. And it's funny because I went in there and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And nobody was ever
Mm.
in this training library. Like I said, there was 40 agents and nobody was ever in there. I was always by myself. So I went in and I just voraciously
Yeah, right.
consumed all these things, all these tactics of these top producers. And I just took one of the tactics and applied it. I ended up getting 3 listings on one block, and nobody could figure out how I got 3 listings on one block. And it was like, this guy taught me in one of the VHS tapes. That's how long ago it
Mm.
was. It was a VHS tape, and it was sitting there in the library, and
Right.
nobody bothered to look at it.
Wow.
I know. It's so funny how like, people will just, even if like now, like the amount of
Mm-hmm.
content that's available, and
Yep.
just people just consume, but never actually like apply, right? It's like I remember reading that 30 days book that Russell did a few years back,
Mm-hmm.
where he
Mm-hmm.
interviewed a bunch of
Yeah.
people and said, if you lost everything, how would you make $1 million in 30 days? Do you remember that? And just like there's so many like just and even Russell talks about like if you apply one
Yep.
thing that you learn from
Yep.
expert secrets or
Yep.
traffic secrets, you can build an entire business
Oh,
off.
it's so true.
Yep.
Russell said
People are just so
something.
busy consuming and
I
not
think it was
applying,
at
right?
FHL. You guys were at FHL too. I think he said it there, but he said, you know what? I don't consume information
Mhm.
anymore for tactics. I consume podcasts and I consume information for
Yeah.
mindset because it
Hmm.
helps me stay in the right mindset. But it's like if you consume for tactics, you're running in circles because there's always a new. Exactly.
You're just Yep, distractions. That's funny because at FHL, maybe I told you this or not, but I didn't hear Russell say that. But I told Joshua specifically, I'm like, I am not here to learn anything,
That's what I did.
because it is just going to be a distraction from what's working for us right now. Like everything is working,
Yep.
like we need to stay laser focused. I am literally here just to meet people like you, Chris. Like I'm like, I just want
That's
to build our network and build
yep.
new relationships. That's the
Yep.
only reason I'm
That's
here.
where we
And
met.
that's all I
You
did. You saw me.
guys,
I'm like at the back of the
oh
room,
man,
like,
you guys were like
with
the
the
masters. I went up and I
bald
found you.
eagle
I mean,
vantage
Bart
point.
sends me a text. He's like, hey, connect with these guys. And then you said, yeah, we're at the back of the room. And I went up to you and it's like, in the time that I was standing there, I saw you making connections with at least a half a dozen different people. I mean, at least. And then you were introducing me. Yeah. And then you were
I know. Yeah,
introducing
you and
me,
I,
who you just
we
met,
talked
to
for a
somebody
good like
else you just
hour or
met.
so.
I was like, wow, these guys are just uber networkers. These guys got it
Yeah,
dialed in.
yeah, dude. Yeah, man. Yeah. In the time that I was standing there talking to you, us three were standing there talking. I think I, oh yeah, because I remember saying like, I'm sorry, Chris, like, give me 1 second, and I was like,
Right.
I got,
Right.
I introduced myself to
Right.
Anik, and he's coming on the podcast. Like, it was fun, man. Like, I forgot, because like when you're an entrepreneur, man, like you can just
Mm-hmm.
spend like months like just isolated, right,
Mm-hmm.
on your island in front of your, on Zoom, right? And like it's been a long time. Like when I was in sales and in my corporate career and stuff, like, and even just like nightlife in my 20s and stuff, like I am very good at like building relationships and networking with people. But
Mm-hmm.
like when you're building a business, you're not going to as many like events, masterminds, networking events, or whatever. So when we went to FHL, and then we got invited to the bad marketing black tie event, and everybody there, you have to be doing $1 million or more, and there was only like, I think it was like a
Mm-hmm.
capacity of like 1,000 people tops, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So everybody in that room is like B to A players, right? And like I was surprised with myself, because it's been such a long time since I've like been in a room like that.
That's
But
amazing.
like I got like 15 people to come on the podcast. Like
Mm-hmm.
Joshua and I, like we talked to Jeremy Miner, Kayla Hodges, Ty Lopez, Brad Lee. Like every single face that I recognized from my phone, I'm like, beeline,
That's
hi,
awesome.
I'm Kevin, nice to meet
Yeah.
you. Like, want to come on the podcast? Like, it was amazing. So that put a
Yeah.
fire in me to
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
least one or two
Absolutely.
events every quarter from now on. You know what I mean? It's like we've only been in business for about a year, but
Mm.
Joshua and I, like our first event was the Tony Robbins Business Mastery. And luckily, because, we get such great results for our clients and we have such great relationships with people, like, we got two free tickets to that
It's a
because one
good
of our
connection.
clients is dating Tony's sales
Yeah.
manager. So
That's
it was like
fantastic.
28K for us to go, and we went for free. Yeah. And then the one person that we knew from everybody in the room besides him, was
Oh,
Joshua
wow.
had met Eli Wild before. So that he was like our third podcast guest. Like, yeah. And so like it's been a fun, man. This podcast is something else. So all right, man, so real estate, so I want to make sure that we pull out too, like the struggles that you went through on different stages of your journey. So like, um, from slinging meat, you realize it wasn't for you, and it's equally as
Yeah.
important to understand what you don't want
Kind of-
as it is to figure out what you do want. So there's definitely huge lessons in that. But how did the real estate stuff go? It sounded like you did pretty well. Three deals
Yeah.
on one block.
What ended up happening was
And
I
so
was
take us
working
from
all the
there.
time. So, I was working 7 days a week. I was getting, this is back in the pager days. This is before I got my first mobile phone while I was at the tail end of my real estate career. And I remember that bad boy. Oh, man.
You know,
Yeah,
you're
exactly,
meeting people
exactly.
in the
Get
real estate space. You're like, hit
type
me on my hip.
911 if it's a real emergency. One of those things, and stopping. I remember stopping
Yeah.
at payphones. Yeah, yeah, I remember stopping at
Josh
payphones
was
to
like, what the
call
hell are you
somebody
guys
back because
talking
I got a
about?
page, but I just didn't like it. I was getting text or pages at 7 o'clock in the morning on Sunday mornings, and what's going on with my listing, and I just didn't love real estate the way a lot of other people
Mm.
did. And for me, what I wanted to do is I wanted to be in the stock market. I saw Wall Street, when I was, in high school, and it was, and
Yeah,
then so
technically
Wall
since
Street
the third
spoke to
grade
me. I
with the
mean,
penny
man,
stocks,
I
right?
tell you, it was Bud Fox and Gordon Gekko and all that, and I was like, yeah, I don't think I could be as evil as Gordon Gekko, but man, I could be a great Bud Fox, and do that, and so I switched gears and I said, you know what I really want to do is I want to be in the securities industry. So I went to the library and I looked up the SIC code for investments and stocks and mutual funds. And I basically put a cover letter together and my resume, and I sent it to every single business in Denver, Colorado that had anything to do with any of that. It was funny because I ended up getting.
Oh yeah, and for anybody who's watching or listening, if
You're lucky.
you grew up with internet and or a smartphone, you have no idea how much work
It was
guys like
crazy.
us
It
used to
was
have to go
crazy.
through to figure stuff out. Luckily, I lived right across the street from the library, but like you actually had to go somewhere and like
Yeah,
you
the
had to go through the
cards.
Dewey Decimal
Yeah.
System of all the
Yeah,
cards to
that's a
figure out where
great
the
point,
book
Kevin.
was.
Great point.
Like
I just take
nuts.
it for granted, but I mean, they had these huge card files that you go and you pull out. And
Mm,
I don't even know of anything comparable today that you can compare that to
hmm.
give somebody an idea. But I mean, there was no computer you sat down and just typed it in and got the
No.
information.
I would compare it to
Yeah, there you go.
imagine if you went on
There you go. You
Wikipedia
just
and
have to
it didn't
look
have a
through it.
search option.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to like
Yeah.
imagine
There
Wikipedia
you
being like
go. That's
Tinder.
good. Yeah,
There's your
that's an
there's your
awesome one. That's an
reference.
awesome
You
one.
just gotta swipe
Yeah,
through.
hand I typed out the letters, but I mailed them by hand. So I mean, it was hundreds,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
I
Hmm.
got hired by a company called Invesco, and started my securities career, and went through, did that for a while. I moved up the ranks pretty fast at Invesco, and I figured out that what I really wanted to do instead of selling mutual funds is I wanted to be an advisor. So I took my Series 7, my different licenses, and I was an advisor for a few years. And then what ended up happening was they started putting too many restrictions on me.
Yeah.
So I like to do presentations. I'm not really a cold sales guy, but I can give a presentation like nobody's business. And so I started developing business through giving presentations,
Yep.
and then compliance was holding me back. So every time I wanted to do a presentation, because I'd get booked for a speaking gig, and then I'd have to run my presentation, my PowerPoint through compliance, and it was
Mm-hmm.
taking a month, 45 days, 60 days sometimes to get them approved. And then by the time I got approved, the speaking engagement had come and passed. And so they were costing me money. And I was like, God, this sucks. I
Mm,
just can't have my hands tied like this. I hate this. And then that's what kind of moved me out. I started a boutique
mm-hmm.
planning practice where I had a little bit more freedom. And then I was an early adopter in LinkedIn and some of the social media. And I was one of the first, I think I was like 89,000
Hmm.
of people that signed up for LinkedIn. I was under the top, I was in the first 100,000 people that signed up for LinkedIn. And when I went out on my own, I realized that being with big financial firms has that marketing clout, and I had to figure out how to develop my own business. So I was an early adopter in social media, and I figured out how
Hmm.
to get clients from LinkedIn and figured out how to get
Yep.
clients from other social media sources. And then through my network, because I was always been a networker, they started asking me, "How are you doing that, Chris?" And that's when I started another side hustle, which was Astute Social Media. I started that in 2012, and pretty soon my side hustle overtook
Hmm.
my business, and I sold my planning practice. No, I was
Course
helping
creation,
people
like you were selling a
get
course or
business,
coaching, like
business
what was it?
owners develop business. We were doing it for them. I had an agency.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So you were actually doing it
And
for them. Okay.
fast forward to 2017. Yeah. Well, I still have the company. I still have
Not
Astute
too
Social
far off from
Media.
what you're doing now, right? Yeah.
But
Yeah.
fast forward to 2017, I was asked to do a
Oh,
presentation
cool.
for 10 automotive repair shop owners, and I ended up getting most of the room as clients, and it changed the trajectory of my agency.
Hmm.
So that's how Technician Find was born.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. Nice. Um, and so you got off
Yeah.
to some pretty good momentum by accident, right? Um, Nothing wrong with that. Um, And so, like, along the way, like 2017, right?
Mhm.
This is a decent amount of time here. We're talking about 8 years and some going on nine soon. Um, walk us through that. Like, what have been like some of the, biggest obstacles, like, glass ceilings that you've hit,
Right.
that you've had to, overcome, stuff
Everything
like
is a
that.
learning experience, when you're a founder, I think. You've got people, I mean, gosh, today we've got Alex Hormozy,
Hmm.
God bless him. He's like, tells you a bunch of stuff that cuts down your learning curve. But,
Hmm.
one of my mentors told me this. He says, you know what, Chris, the harder you work, the luckier you'll get. And that's always what's driven me. And my nature, it's funny because I used to mentor kids when I was an advisor. I'd mentor kids, and I was work with junior achievement, and I'd go into the high schools and teach them financial literacy. And the kids would always ask me, what do you want to do? What am I going to do? What did you do? And I always said, add value, figure out what you're good at and what you love doing, and add value. And over the years, that's changed a little bit for me because adding value
Hmm.
is more specific for me now. Adding value is solving problems. And if you can solve the
Hmm.
bigger problems you can solve,
Yep.
the more money you can make. And that's really what it's all about for me. I mean, I'll tell you, I just set out to solve
Hmm.
problems. That's what Technician Find is we set out to solve one of the biggest problems that independent automotive repair shop, any type of automotive repair shop or diesel repair or collision repair has. And it's finding technicians. That's a huge, huge pain point. It's a bleeding neck problem. And I said, you know what? I wonder if we can apply the social media and the digital marketing core competencies to this problem. And we did. We applied direct response copywriting, lead gen, social media
Hmm.
marketing. all of these things, conversion rate optimization, we applied all this to the problem of finding technicians. And that's where Technician Find was born. So yeah, it's not been smooth sailing. There have been times when I've lost clients. There was 30% of our gross revenue. You know, it's in a 1 month period, we lost the client that was 30% of our gross revenue, and then the second biggest client that was 20% of my gross revenue, and that hurts when that happens. And
Yeah.
those are the mornings where you wake up and say, do I want to go back to a cubicle?
Yep.
and then and then that drive kicks in again, and you're like, nope, I got to figure this out. So you just double down, get back to
Yeah.
blocking and tackling.
Yeah.
I really resonate with a lot of your story
Love it.
in the financial
Yeah.
industry. That's where I got my start, and I also retired myself from it, not in a positive way. I failed out of it, actually. I guess a better term would be flunking out of the financial industry. But I failed my Series 7 exam 3 times in a row.
Mm,
And yeah, with the compliance stuff, the red tape and all that, man, you're so limited. Like the only marketing assets you have are the ones that are approved by the company, and that took forever. And
yeah,
so I felt like such an intrapreneur. I feel like I was like limited. I couldn't go beyond the veil of innovation into greater things that I had ideas about. And so
totally.
I'm really glad that actually happened. So
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
wanted to
It's a
connect on that.
huge learning point. Yeah, I
Hmm.
I, I agree with you. 100%. I love building portfolios. That was my thing. I love building non-correlated portfolios and talking about it. And it wasn't really what I thought it was going to be. What the corporation wanted you to do is they wanted you to come in, use their scripts, sell their products, and do everything their way and be cookie cutter. And I was like, this isn't what I want to do. This is
Yeah, no.
that's madness.
Well, now you're still kind of building portfolios. It's just your clients' businesses, and you're
I do. I do. I tell my clients that all the time. I use my financial advisor skills to apply to this industry. Yeah, we do it all the time. Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's awesome how you can, learn things in a totally different space and find a way to
Yes. Yep.
be bring value in a completely new space, right? Like, that's why I had asked you, did you do any sales before you started the real estate aspect of things? Because, I feel like one of the major, you know, advantages that I had when I started
Yeah.
my entrepreneurial
Yep.
journey is I already
Yep.
had 10
Y-
years of sales experience, right? So, and so I wanted to ask you, like, what were some of the personal growth, like, moments? Like, what are the things that Chris had to transform from and into from being an employee to running his own business? What were the main things, like, that were like, okay, I have to shed this version of myself and create an entirely
Yeah.
new
Yeah. What a
version
great
of
question.
myself because this isn't
For
serving me?
me, it was all around. It, it was all around responsibility, because I think when you work for a company, you're in a silo and you're responsible for a certain narrow set of things. But when you own a business,
Hmm.
when you're an entrepreneur, I mean, it's, the buck stops with
Yeah.
you, as the saying goes. I mean, you're responsible for everything. And for me, what ended up happening
Hmm.
is the things that I didn't want to do or didn't like to do, I would kind of procrastinate on and avoid. And that's not the way you build a business. And it's deceptive, because if you focus on the right things, you can go pretty far pretty fast. But without without looking at these other things. But eventually it sneaks up and it catches you and bites you in the rear. So for me, it
Hmm.
was about, okay, we're at another stage. We hit this revenue mark and now we need more employees. Chris isn't a good manager. Chris hates managing people. Chris wants to innovate. Chris wants to sell. Chris wants to do all these other things, but we need to have people in place. They need to be, brought along, and they need to do all these other things. So it's like, okay, how do I get those skills? And thankfully for me, I love to learn. Learning is my superpower. I love to learn. Whenever I want to learn something new, I'll go out and get 7 books and read them all, and I'll figure it out. And for me, that's a real superpower. But in order to go where I need to go, I need to have a team. And building a team was a big part of my evolution, and I'm still doing it because I don't consider myself a really good. I consider myself a good leader because I can really paint the vision, I can really sell the vision, but I'm not a good manager.
Mm.
I, I'm yeah, they are. They're totally different
Mm.
skill sets, and it's
Totally
like,
different skill
gosh,
sets.
if I've got to tell you what to do, and then come back and make sure that you did it, and then QC everything that you've done, it's like, what's the point? you know? So, and I realize that
Mm.
in order to get to the next level,
Yeah.
I need to do that on a bigger scale. So that's a big part of what I've been learning. And
Hmm.
it's just consistent learning. You just keep learning things and keep learning things, and it never ends. I was just talking to one of my clients who's been running his business for 32 years, and he said, "I learn something new every day." You have to keep learning because this is the way that it works. So
Yep.
that's what it's been for me, pointing the light in the areas that I didn't want to see. And business coaches are
Hmm.
great for that. Is if you really listen to your employees, it can be great for that. Not
Hmm.
everybody's good at listening to their employees. I had one of my, that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. I
Business
had someone on
partners
my
are great
team
for that
point
too.
something out to me, and it hurt. It hurt. She said, Chris, you're not the best
Yeah.
trainer in the world. I said, what the hell do you mean? I'm great at explaining things. I'm great at giving presentations. And it was funny because she, we were talking about another member on my team, and I was frustrated because this other member on my team wasn't picking up what was she supposed to be doing. And then so the other team member said, well, when you were teaching me, I had a lot of questions and it just wasn't really clear. I mean, you kind of assumed that I should know a lot of things that I didn't know. And I was like, wow. Hmm. And I thought a lot about that. I thought about that for a week. I was like,
Mm.
wow, I thought I was being really clear and very patient, and maybe I need to go back and revisit that. So it's having that humility and being open minded to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a never-ending cycle, man.
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
It really is.
A lot of variables
And
with
Yeah.
sometimes it's so frustrating because
a
you're
lot
like,
of
I've been doing this
variables
for
when
so
dealing with
long. Like,
people.
how many adjustments do I have to make? Like, how many modifications and do I need to have with how I operate this business and how I choose to make decisions and how I behave? And it's like till you die.
Keep doing it.
Well, frame
Right.
is not, it's the journey, not the destination. Like if you're looking
No,
if you're
no,
Yeah.
approaching
no.
it from a place of completion, then your
No,
approach is completely
it's a
wrong.
never ending game. It's
There is no
what does Simon
completion.
Sinek call it?
The infinite game.
Infinite game. Thank you. Yeah, it is. It's the infinite game. You just keep going and you keep learning. And Tony Robbins said something else that I think was really great. Is it's about
Hmm.
sensory acuity. So it's not just taking action. It's having the sensory acuity to know when the action that you're taking is moving you towards your goal. And
Mm,
that's a big part of it because you know what, you're an entrepreneur, you're always busy, and you can be as busy as you want for as long as you want. That's part of what. No, it's not.
Yeah.
And if you don't hold yourself
Busy isn't
accountable,
productivity
you
though.
can be as busy as hell and not get anywhere. And that's the big thing for me too,
Yep.
is if there is one thing that I miss about having just a job, a job, is when you leave, you're done. When you turn out the
You're
lights
sober
and you
broke.
leave the office, you get in your car and you drive home, you're
Yeah.
done. You can do whatever the hell you want. Now, I'll be walking by my office,
Mhm.
after walking the dog, and I'll go, oh, you know what? I need to do something. And then I'll go in, and
hmm
then it's like 11 o'clock at night. I haven't eaten dinner, and it just, there's always something to
Yeah.
do. You're never done. So,
Yeah. Yeah. If it wasn't for my wife,
Yeah,
I'd
like
probably already have withered
yesterday I
away and
totally
freaking
for
blown
like
away
I
with the
I knew
wind.
I needed to eat,
Like,
but I didn't eat until like 7 o'clock at night, and
mhm.
like it's just because I could like I didn't have enough time to step away.
Yep.
or and I didn't want to eat on the meetings, and so I just drank a bunch of water all day.
Yeah.
And so like,
Yeah.
that's how it is sometimes, dude. And
I totally get it. Totally get it.
you you mentioned business coach. Now that's obviously how we met was because of your business coach, Mr.
Yep.
Bart Miller, who we
Yep.
had on our podcast. Phenomenal human being.
Amazing guy.
Um, I'd like to learn a little bit more about when you started working with him, why you started working with him, and how did that shift and excel you forward?
Yeah. So with Bart, I saw a podcast that he did with uh, Jim Edwards, and Jim is awesome, and that's how I got into the. I
No,
mean, I've been
Jim's
in Jim's
awesome.
ecosystem for years. I mean, I bought his Book in a Day. I think it was Book in a Day that he wrote. I mean, way back, like in 2010 or 2011 or something. So I've been on his list forever. I bought, a handful
Mm,
of his stuff and I've been following him. And then I saw one of his podcast episodes and Bart just spoke to me. It was that point, my business had grown to a certain point and I was looking for the next level. And he started talking about it. And I'll remember the two stories he told. He said, he told one story about having a recipe. So he said, if you want to be successful, you've got to have a recipe. And I,
mm.
I think he's told everybody that story.
He's told me that story, actually. I was gonna say I
I'll
can't
send you the
find the
link.
podcast
Yeah,
episode, but
yeah.
maybe send me it after the show here. But I'm
Well,
like, well,
it was
he already
brilliant. I
told
mean,
me
you
that
know what's
story.
really
What else?
brilliant is when I'm on a call with Bart and he walks me through what they did in that podcast. That's what's really brilliant. And so
Mm,
he said there's two things that people have to come away with from this podcast. One is they have to come away with the fact that whatever they want to accomplish, that there's a recipe for it. Somebody's done it and it's a recipe. And if you follow the recipe the way that the recipe should be followed, you're going to produce the same result. Doesn't matter if you're black or white or old or young or man or woman or anything. It's a recipe. And the second thing you need to have is you have to have accountability. So you need to make sure that you're taking the steps that are involved in the recipe. If you have the recipe and accountability, you can accomplish whatever you want to
mm.
accomplish. And that's what brought me into Bart's world.
Yep. And don't deviate from the recipe
Yeah.
either just because you have a little idea or you saw something on social media. Because now I just was talking to he was our marketing guy, but I actually kind of shifted him into I put him into Josh Lyon's coaching program. He's going to close for us because
Mm-hmm.
we need to Joshua and I need to step out of this the closing role in order to be able
Yep.
to scale this business to the next level. Is one of the things that we need to focus on. So I put him in Josh Lyon's coaching program. It's been awesome so far. He's been in there for a few weeks, but conversation I was having with him the other day, I was like, dude, you need to follow the exact recipe that he's laid out for you. He's like, you need to buy this water filter, this thing, or whatever. And this is about, being in the right state when get on a sales call. And he's like, well, I already have what are those things called? The Stanley cups. He's like, I already have a Stanley. So he's like, and so he posted, he's like, I bought this, and this, but I already had a Stanley. And Josh like ripped him a new one in the school community. He's like, I don't know what made you think that it's acceptable to deviate from like the plan here, the recipe basically, right? And he comes to me, he's like, oh man, he's like he kind of ripped me a new one, and he's like, I didn't expect that. I thought I was doing a good thing. He's like, I was being proactive and I got all the stuff that's in the training that he told me to get. And I'm like, dude, I gave him an example. I'm like, imagine if you're like, baking something, right? Let's say the recipe calls for you
Mm-hmm.
to use a rubber
Mm-hmm.
spatula, right? And to fold the dough in the bowl,
Mm-hmm.
right? And instead you use a
Mm-hmm.
whisker because it's quicker, using like
Mm-hmm.
a plug-in whisker or whatever, and you're like, this
Not the
mixes it
same
up
thing.
faster. Well, guess what you're gonna get when you pull that out of the
Mm-hmm.
oven? You're gonna have brick hard freaking cupcakes or whatever, right? Because it's
Yep.
not spongy enough because you didn't create the bubbles by folding it over. I'm like, just that little tweak of thinking that you
Yep.
paid him. You're paying him $3,000 a month to be your mentor. You need to be coachable and you need to be
Yep.
completely open
Yep.
to, you don't know what you don't know, and he is your leader. You need to be
Yep.
100% submissive to the information. If you get in your own way in any way, shape, or form, two things are going to happen. You're not going to get the
Mm-hmm.
results that other people that
Mm-hmm.
are 100% committed and listening, right? I'm like, dude, he almost
Mm-hmm.
made it to the MLB. He was a minor league baseball player for years. I'm like, how would your coach back then, like, if he told you to do something a certain way and you
Right. Right.
decided to do it your own way, you would have got your ass chewed out, right?
Yep.
Like, so I'm like, you need to understand. I'm like, this is your money, this is his time. His time is valuable, and he's
Yep.
going to treat you accordingly. There are 70 other people in his coaching program. He only has 4 hours a week with you guys. Do you want to be his top student that he goes above and beyond for, because he knows that
Yep.
you're the cream of the crop that is going to be the
Yep.
amazing case
Yep.
study? Or do you want to just be one of the other 60? It's like, wow, I didn't really view it that way. But he's like,
Yep.
it's just a Stanley Cup, bro. I'm like, no, it's that serious. This is how A players think. This is how A players show up. And if you're going to pay somebody, like, you know, I'm the one that, like, with Josh Forty's program, right? Like, Joshua and I, like, I paid an extra $5,000. That one little tweak, that extra $5,000 of proximity just to have Voxer access to him,
Yeah.
probably about
Yep.
60% of the results that we've gotten came from that direct access. So, like, if you think about it, like, you're paying for proximity to him, don't squander it by
Yep.
being in your own way and just thinking you know things. I'm like, you don't know what you don't know. And as soon as you make the
Yep.
conscious decision to accept that you don't know anything, you will become a
So true.
sponge of knowledge and information, and you will never stop growing, never stop learning. As soon as you
So
think you know
true.
something, you have closed yourself off to any growth potential that was on
Yeah.
the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And that's a
so
horrible
true. Yeah.
disservice to do to
And you
yourself.
don't really know. The problem is you're hiring somebody to teach you how to do something, so you don't know what you don't know. You're unconsciously incompetent. So why do you think you're going to be able to
Yeah.
change the tweaks in the recipe
Yeah.
and get the result that you want? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And Josh Lyons is one of the best sales coaches. I've been in sales for
Mm,
25, close to 25 years, I think now at this point, right? 24. He
mm,
he's one of the best sales coaches I've ever come in contact with. And he does not play around with his time, and he holds himself to a very high standard of excellence,
yeah.
and so he
Yeah.
expects that
Yeah. I
same standard
respect
of
that.
excellence from his
Yep.
students, right? Um, I'm like, you gotta step it up, bro. I'm like, you wanted to get
Yep.
into the MLB from the minors. I'm like, this is
Yep.
that now. I'm like, you're
Yep.
you're auditioning for the
Good
majors
stuff.
right now.
That's a great
That was
story.
good stuff. It just comes back to the topic of hiring a coach and then trusting your coach, not deviating from, even if the recipe makes no freaking sense, you're like, "Ugh." Like it's about being submissive and trusting the path. Like this
Yeah.
is the way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
Sometimes I like the
you
shit
see
that
what he
doesn't make
found
any
out this
sense.
morning,
It
right?
makes me
He
more
did some
curious
research.
to apply it.
But
What?
yeah, he told us on the meeting. He
No, I
was like,
didn't.
"Yeah,
I,
this
I
has
must have
this
missed it.
amount
Oh
of
no, did he tell
particles
us
per
on the meeting?
second."
What? Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, there you go, Chris. So he, after the fact, this morning on the morning meeting, this was 2 days ago, and then he went and bought the right stuff and reposted it. And I told him, I'm like, you need to send Josh a direct message and, like, apologize and tell him that your intention was not to, like, whatever, and, like, fix this, right?
Sure.
Because it reflects poorly on me. I'm the person,
Yeah.
like, he's selling my offer, and it's my relationship with Josh, right? Um, and ultimately, so, like, he comes to the morning meeting and he's like, so did a little bit of research on my Stanley Cup versus the thing that he told me to buy, and here's why. It's like there's, like, certain amount
Mm,
of, like, metal that, like, seeps out into the water. I don't know what the calculations are or whatever, but there's a way that you measure that
hmm.
stuff that people are pretty cognizant of if they're health conscious, right? Which I need to pay attention to. I
Hmm.
need to stop drinking out of plastic. That's one of the things that he told everybody to stop doing. Um, and he's like, the thing that he told me to buy
Particles per
has
like
0%,
particles per something.
like, that whatever it is that
Particles per million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I'm like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. And
Yeah.
I'm like, see, you don't know what you don't know. I'm like, what
Yeah.
did you learn? He's like, nah,
Yeah.
dude, you're
Yeah.
good. I get it.
And
You're
when you
like,
don't know
I
about
know.
something,
I'm like, all right.
yeah,
Yeah.
when you don't know
So
something, it's not gonna make
don't
sense to
forget
you.
it either. Carry that.
That's the whole thing. What makes sense to you is to continue to produce the results that you've already produced.
Yep.
That's what makes sense. if you're gonna go outside yourself and produce a different
Yep.
level of results,
Yep.
you have to do things
Yep.
that don't make sense and that aren't logical to you, because if it was logical, you'd be doing
Yep.
it already.
Yep. Yep. You know, and I think about like, you know, it's one thing, everybody gets spanked like that and, you know, it stings and then you like learn a lesson. But, you know, there's something that Tony said a long time ago before I ever saw him live. And it really resonated with me. And I just,
Mm-hmm.
you know, those things that people say and it's automatic, like, okay, I'm a new person. Like it just resonates so, and now you immediately like, I
Mm-hmm.
made a conscious decision that that is now the way I conduct myself, right? And Tony said, you know, about like you were talking about procrastination and stuff, and it's like he said, what is the best time? What is the most impactful time to make a change, like to do something, do anything right now, right? Right now, like you have the highest percentage of that
Mm-hmm.
thing bearing fruit or gaining momentum is
Yep.
if in
Yep.
that moment that you make a choice and take action, right? Yeah. And so like I'm like, okay, like you learn that lesson, but like sometimes people will have to learn the same lesson like 20 different times and different
No, no.
variations of the same lesson. And it's like, well, then you never learned the
That's
lesson.
exactly
You
right.
just got
Yeah,
spanked, and then
my
when the
favorite quote
stinging
around
went
this
away, you
was
went back to
I
doing the
heard this
same
from Eben
bullshit.
Pagan. I don't know if he's the one that came up with it or not, but he said, you haven't learned something until your behavior changes. And that's so true, because you think,
Yeah.
yeah, well,
And
your
your ego
intellectual
will tell you
knowledge, and
that you learned
I
it
got
though.
caught in this trap.
And
I still
like,
get caught in this trap all
yeah.
the time, because I can explain something to you. I can BS something to you, and I can sound like I know what the hell I'm talking about. But you know what? When you look at results,
Hmm.
that's when it becomes real, you know.
Hmm.
And how many times have we given results? And it was funny, because I got to tell
Yeah.
you this
Yep.
really brief story, because this just happened to me last week. So this so a
No,
friend of
you're good.
mine
That's what we're
comes
here
to
for.
me and he
Go for it.
says, hey, I'm having this problem. And I have a lot of friends that do that, because I listen, I'm good at listening, and then I'm also good at problem solving. And so he tells me this, and then at the end of it, I said, huh,
I'll keep that in mind.
well, if I were you, I would probably go in this direction, but I don't have an answer for you. And the reason why was because it was because of his divorce. And he was telling me all the stuff of the divorce. And I said, let me frame this.
Hmm.
I've read a lot of stuff on relationships and studied a lot of relationships and all this kind of stuff. But you know what? Don't listen to me, because I've never been married and I've never been divorced. So don't listen to me. And it was weird, because he was kind of
Hmm.
taken aback, because I've always just, waxed and pontificated and,
Hmm.
this and that. But I said, you know what? I just got to this point probably about 5 years ago. And I said, I'm not going to take advice from people who aren't where I want to be. And I'm not going to give advice to people that I don't have any experience in. Yeah. It's like I've read,
If you don't have the
hundreds
reference
and hundreds of
points.
books, and
Yep.
I've listened to stuff, and I'm, a voracious reader and all this. So I can talk intelligently about a lot of subjects. But when it really comes,
Yeah, you're
you
better
know
off
what?
recommending a book or
Absolutely.
something
The
than you are
problem
giving
is,
them advice in that
not
situation, for
one in
sure.
10 people reads books. Yeah. It's, but it's,
Never read
it's just
books on
so,
that
because I
subject
want to
because you
give
haven't
people,
read
I
them.
kind of think of this as
Yeah,
my
sure.
duty,
Yeah.
because reading for me is just natural. Learning to me is just natural, and problem solving is just natural. And I want to share it with everybody. It's like, wow, I figured something out that I can help you with. Let me share it. But until you really have that experience and you've gone through it and you've solved it for yourself, and I had this conversation with one of my clients too. He said, you know what? I don't like coaching programs. And I said, why? And he said, I don't need to get on a call with somebody every 2 weeks and have them give me a pep talk. And I said, You know what? I thought that too, but I came across something, and gosh, I wish I could remember where I came. Like,
You know,
well, there's different types of
you're
coaching.
totally
That's the
missing the
thing.
point
And
of
we
coaching,
talked
I'll
about
tell
it,
you
and I
that.
said, you know what? There's one type of coaching, which is
Yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
who has studied what they're coaching on. So they've learned, they've gone to college, they've gotten degrees, they've gotten certifications, they've done all this
Hmm.
stuff. That's one level. Another level is somebody has been in proximity to somebody who's gotten the result. So it's like, hey, I was Warren Buffett's administrative assistant for 20 years. I know what
Hmm.
Warren Buffett did. Come listen to me. I'll tell you what Warren Buffett did. So that's a different level. And then the third level is you're learning at the feet
Hmm.
of the master.
Yep.
This is somebody who's done it. This is somebody who's doing it now. And they're telling you not from
Hmm.
a perspective of, oh, well, this is what I've seen done. This is how you do it. I've done it. I've been through this. Do it like this, and you will get the result. And I said to him, I said, you probably haven't been at level
Hmm.
3 of a coaching relationship. And he said, no, I haven't. He said, that's a good point, Chris. I'll have to relook at that.
Yeah, that comes back to the point of like
Hmm.
thinking that you have learned
Yeah,
everything that you did
absolutely.
there is to
You know,
learn. You took off the student hat, and
Yeah.
you think you're unteachable at this point.
Yeah.
mm. Well, and it reminds me of I had a spiritual mentor back in maybe about a decade ago, and he was a NASA aerospace engineer, but he
Wow.
was also like a 33rd degree knighted Rosicrucian. So he had a lot of
Yeah.
interesting knowledge and experience, right? Um, And one of the things that always, that just stuck with me for life that he said
Mm-mm.
was, knowledge, everybody says knowledge is power. Knowledge isn't power. Knowledge is benign. It's the assimilation of the knowledge. And especially when, like, in regards to like a coach or whatever, it's like, you
Mm-hmm.
don't take advice from somebody who doesn't have the reference points of experience and
Yep.
assimilating that knowledge. Like knowledge is abundant.
Now more
Knowledge
than at
is
any other
is
time in
infinite.
history.
It's a
Yeah.
commodity at this point.
You can learn anything. Gosh.
Yeah. Like if knowledge was power
That's
in
right.
2025, we would all be billionaires on our way to being
Mm-mm.
trillionaires
Mm-mm.
because
No.
there's no limit to how much money they'll print.
No.
No.
So
Yeah.
knowledge is
It's
not the power. You have to
Napoleon Hill.
get off your ass and do something.
It's because not
And you
only
have to
is
get laser
knowledge more
focus
available
on
than
what
at
you're
any other
doing.
time in history, but distractions are more available than at any other time in history. And that's a big problem of mine. I never met a new idea that I
Hmm.
didn't love. I mean, I'm Mr. Chase things down rabbit holes because I just love it. So a lot of it
Hmm.
is pulling myself back. But to your point about organizing the knowledge, I
Yeah.
mean, Napoleon Hill has a whole chapter on that in Think and Grow Rich. Is it's not knowledge; it's organized knowledge that has been focused and
Hmm.
channeled towards the production of a specific end. And then he gets into Carnegie and Rockefeller and how they did all that, and that's
Hmm.
so true.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. Funny, you were talking about something earlier, and I was like, you guys were quoting like I think like Tony Robbins, and then you mentioned some other guy from a book, and it's still ringing in the back of my mind. I was like, my
The
idiot
Infinite
brain
Game
was
by
like, you
Simon
guys were talking
Sinek.
about like the infinite what was it um the infinite game, and like I'm like my idiot ADHD brain is like all of a sudden I hear Lamb Chops sing along of like this is the song that doesn't end. Yes, it goes on and on, my friend. I'm like, dude, what am I? Sometimes, like, being ADHD is hilarious. Like, you can hear what goes on in my head, but it makes me such like an eccentric entrepreneur. Like, I feel like in like
Mm-hmm.
the outside of the box thinking and like no parameters, you know, that I have, um, they've been definitely a gift. Like, some of the keys to my success of like just, you know, um even this podcast, like this podcast didn't necessarily like it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have the purpose that 99% of other
Yeah.
podcasts do.
Yeah.
Like we're here to just build a relationship and get to know people, right? Like and build a network of amazing entrepreneurs and like, get to know people. And it's like everybody else is like, oh, so you got a
Mhm.
podcast, like you get, you're gonna get sponsors, and like how many viewers do you have, and like,
You know,
like I'm like,
some people
care
are
about
really
any of
good
that
at
stuff.
that. They're really good at laying everything out into the, distance and following that step-by-step plan. I'm not, even though I have the planning skills and we do planning and we have goals and all that sort of thing. But, I think Steve Jobs said it best. He said, you can't connect the dots in going forward. You have to connect the dots in reverse. You just never know. I mean, I was talking to a technician the other day that we're trying to place,
Mm. Yep.
and he said, "Hey, Chris, did you know what you wanted to do when you were in college?" And I said, "When I was in college, what I do didn't exist." You have to just always be learning and always adding
Mm.
value. And I said, you if you can figure out how to solve problems, you'll always have a job. You'll always be able to take care of yourself, and you'll always be in demand. And that's really what it's about now, even more today than ever before, because people have more problems and it's easier to solve their problems because you have so many more resources.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And very true. Like I'm like, um, even right now, like right now, we have or I have a client that we're about to start working with, probably starting tomorrow. And 80% of what he needs is like our expertise and our wheelhouse, right? But like the 20% that isn't, under normal circumstances, if we didn't have a network and and great relationships in our industry, we probably would have had to DQ him, right? Versus now, I'm just like, start a group chat with me and Joshua and somebody who used to run ads for Alex Ramosi and a bunch of other big players, and like, hey, you want to come in on this
Very
project with
cool.
us so we
Yep.
can ensure that our client gets amazing results?
Yeah.
Absolutely, right? So like, yeah, it's, even though like that's what I was saying about like the networking events and stuff, like even like just like funnel hacking live and stuff. It's like you can be an entrepreneur and you can reach a level of success and be on an island like we tend to be. But like, they say
Yep. Yep.
you can
Absolutely.
go fast
Yep.
by
I love that
yourself, but
saying.
you can go far together, right? Um,
Yep.
and it's like, when Russell talks about find the who, not the how, I just realized that since we started this podcast, the who in any aspect at the
Yep.
highest level of skill is only one or two people away. And that is totally different than my last business. My last business, I was on an island. Like I was in the top 1% of all Shopify stores for traffic in the world, right? Like right up there with
Hmm.
the hundreds of thousands of visitors like Kylie Jenner's shop and stuff,
Hmm.
right? But I was doing it all by myself. I did no networking, I did no relationship building. And so when I hit a tough spot in the business, I didn't have anyone to ask what to do because I didn't know anybody that had been where I am. And I didn't like, so I just
Hmm.
ended up being stuck. COVID hit, like all, and I ended up shutting the business down. And it was just like one of the worst things. And I didn't actually realize until just now in this conversation that that is the one of the major differences between the level of
Hmm.
success that I achieved there and the sustainability of that business versus where we're at now with this
Yeah.
business,
What a
just with the
great
relationships
realization.
and the network that we've built. So it's incredible. So for anybody watching, listening, you can be super successful, but if you don't have a network, you may one day find yourself at a
Hmm.
brick wall,
Yep.
That's
basically
right.
at gunpoint, and can't get out of it. And
It is so
as
much
a
easier to
metaphor of
back
like
out when it's
you
just
might
you,
lose
because most
everything
people quit on
because you don't
themselves
have
every
anyone
day.
available to.
And
Yep.
but whenever you have people around you that believe in you, you have a team, like you have more reasons to stay in the game. And so not just like doing it by yourself and not having a network, but like literally it makes sure that you do go further because they're there. If you're by
Totally.
yourself, you're probably gonna, most people are gonna quit on themselves if they don't have other,
Yep.
have a team. If they don't have, if they're just by themselves.
Absolutely. And that goes for people at your peer level too. You need to, you have a team to support the mission of your company or your business, but you also
Hmm.
have peers that understand what you're going through. Because I mean, when I get on a call with, my peers, it's funny because I don't even know when my state starts to slip. I mean, I don't really notice it consciously all the time. But if I get on a call with a bunch of other entrepreneurs or a bunch of other founders, then I'll get back up. My tone scale will go back up, and it'll be like, oh yeah, I was slipping a little bit, and I didn't even realize it. And then I'll get fired up again. Like being on this call with you guys. It's you can go through the mundane stuff day to day, and you're sitting there and you're working on your VSL and you're working on these other things, and you just get bogged down. But then you get back up into a conversation like this, and the energy comes back through again, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember why I did this. Yeah, I can keep going for another couple months. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why, like, no matter how busy I am in the business, I never miss a coaching call. Like every Monday, it's like 2 to 3 hours with the coach that we currently have, Josh Forty. And like, I don't care what's going on in the business. Like, I don't care if there's 100 fires. Mondays are not easy. In and of itself, Mondays are not easy because there's stuff that happened over the weekend that needs to get cleaned up, whatever. But I will not miss a coaching call. Like, won't. So Chris, what's next? I wanna get into, like, we kind of brought everybody up to speed of like where you are now, the success of the business, and the longevity of it, and congratulations on that in and of itself, because most people don't even make it that long with and don't have the stick to itiveness or the focus and the especially now, right? We talked about all the distractions and like shiny object syndrome, and like you see so many people, like they'll see success and then they're like, oh, okay,
Right.
this is what I do now, and I'm going to switch to
I
this
just saw a
offer
great
'cause this is
video
hot,
by
and this
Alex
is hot,
Hormozy on
right?
that.
So
he
grads on
says,
that.
you know what? If you hear the guys that are changing their offer every 6
What
months,
was it?
it's because their product sucks. He says, work on your product. He says, just make a better sandwich. Don't try to figure out a bunch of different ways to sell your crappy sandwich. Just make a better sandwich. There's more longevity, it's more sustainable, and everybody's happier.
That's crazy.
Yep.
So simple, right? But
It sounds
it
simple, right?
You got
simple,
it.
not easy, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No. Everybody's too busy watching what everybody else is doing. That's why, like, I don't perceive anybody that does what we do in the AI space as a competitor anyway, just because, of our competitive advantages, our
Yep.
sales experience, my conversion rate optimization expertise. Being, we're not tech people, right? So like coming into a tech space, it's like when, Deion Sanders
Mm-hmm.
went and played baseball, right? He was playing baseball and football. Or Michael Jordan, right? Michael Jordan didn't do as well. It was more so the Bo
Yeah.
Jacksons and the Deons that were able to do two sports and really kick ass at them. But I look at it like that. Like and we talked about it earlier, is like taking a skill
Yep.
from one place and applying it in a
Yes.
completely different
That's so
place,
true.
and now
Yep.
you become a one of one, right? And that's what I love the most about being in the AI space. Is like most of the people in the AI space are kind of just like, they're tech people. They build tech that works, but like, dude, we have combined 23 years sales experience, ran 7-figure sales teams. I have my conversion rate optimization with running hundreds of thousands of visitors to a Shopify store. Like it would
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
it would take somebody a decade to
I
be a
love the quote,
competitor
and
in
I
this.
can't remember who said
You
this.
know
It
what I
wasn't
mean?
me. I'm not this
Which is
wise,
fun.
but it was, nobody can ever beat you at being yourself. And it's so true. I mean, nobody has your unique skills, talents,
Hmm.
abilities, experience, wisdom. And if you can combine that together to solve a problem, I mean, you're never going to be commoditized. So kudos
Nope.
to you for figuring that out.
Yep.
Not a lot of people figure that out.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everybody, like right now, like AI is starting to get commoditized. I think we're kind of starting to hit like a
Mm-hmm.
bell curve, and people are like, it's a race to the bottom. They're lowering their prices. They're doing this SaaS stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, damn, dude, I just quoted somebody 50
Yeah.
grand
Yeah. That
yesterday.
is a race to the
Like,
bottom.
you're playing the wrong game. Like, focus on
Yep.
getting them amazing results. Like, forget the volume. Just hyper focus in on getting the right people
Absolutely.
10 times better results than
Absolutely.
anything else or
Yep.
anyone else.
Yeah.
It all comes back to value.
Value. Yep. and that's why I love what you do too, man. Like nobody else is doing what you do for technicians or for auto shops like that. Like I'm sure there's other people
No,
that do it, but
no,
like
it's
not the way that
different.
you do it, not with
And
what you bring to
my
it.
big thing, I mean, I shared this with you on, offline, but my big thing was always going back to, if you really want to know how to add value, it goes back to what Amazon did, what Jeff Bezos did. And it was in one of his letters. I used to read all his letters to shareholders, and in one of his letters, he said something. I'm going to screw it up, but I'll give you the gist. But it was, you know what? People are always going to want things faster. They're always going to want things cheaper, and they're always going to want more selection. So we're going to build Amazon, and all the decisions that we make we're going to filter through
Mm-hmm.
those criteria and look at where Amazon is today. I mean, can you get anything faster from anybody? Can you get more selection? I mean, it's
Yeah,
like they got
that's
everything in the
incredible.
world. And can you get it faster? I mean, gosh, you can order something on your phone, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's there the afternoon. I mean, say whatever you want about their politics, but their business model has it dialed in. I mean, I was just reading the other day that they have areas in ports in countries that are just designated for Amazon. So your own little section of the port is just
Mm-hmm.
Amazon. I mean, they just
Yep.
they just
Yeah.
dialed it in, and the way that they dialed it in was because they got so focused on exactly where they were going to add value, and they did it.
It's genius.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I look at like something's a behemoth when, or even it's been a good probably 10 years maybe since the first person became a millionaire with Amazon. But like something's a behemoth
Yeah,
when it's
yeah,
making
yeah.
millionaires just by leveraging, right? That's it. Like that's the funny thing I love about ClickFunnels. We had Jimmy. Do you know Jimmy?
No, no, I don't
Jimmy
know him.
Allen. He works at ClickFunnels. He's worked there since the inception. Yeah, so Jimmy's a good friend. He's actually, well,
Oh,
Todd
wow.
Dickerson has actually been his brother-in-law since before Todd met Russell. So it's like so
Hmm.
cool. I didn't know that when I met Jimmy. I just found that out like maybe a month ago. Um, but yeah, so and I was talking to him about ClickFunnels, and I was like, dude, the thing that like the coolest thing about ClickFunnels for me when I first like came upon Russell, like when I got the like
Hmm.
perfect webinar in the mail back when he was like mailing them out, right? The And I was like, the coolest thing about it for me has always been like that,
Right.
like at the end of Scooby Doo where they take the mask off and it's like, oh, it's Doctor whatever or whatever. And so for me, it's like ClickFunnels uh, is a network marketing company
Hmm.
disguised
Hmm.
as an affiliate marketing company disguised as a SaaS, right? And I always thought that business model and just that the genius in the core of what ClickFunnels is, and then that
Yep.
outward projection of the type of community that
Yeah.
has created has always been one of the most phenomenal things that I've ever seen. Um, it's just so cool. Like, everybody kind of had their days in network marketing. We were slinging meat. I used to sling
Oh, man.
Vima, which is like energy drinks. That was one of
I
my first. It was like healthy
Oh,
energy
yeah.
drinks.
I
One of
hear
my
you,
first
brother. I was
entrepreneurial ventures,
when I was in
BK
college, I
Barreco.
worked at a bank, and I got
The drinks were
everyone.
awesome.
I got hit by Amway every week. I got hit by Melaleuca. I got hit by ACN. I got hit by all of them because you're
Mhm.
standing there and you just talk to people all day every day, and everybody's
Yep.
got to hit you with their network marketing deal. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's you know.
Oh, it's funny actually. We're talking about
Mm-hmm.
the bad marketing event that Joshua and I went to after Funnel Hacking Live. That was like exclusive event or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hosted by Bad Marketing, which is Eddie Malouf's company, right? And I just found out from Jimmy actually that that's how they went to college together, I guess, back in the day, and that Jimmy met Eddie
How
through
funny.
Vima as a network. He was trying to
That's
recruit him
funny.
into his network marketing company back when they were in college.
Mhm.
And now they're, the good friends through the ClickFunnels world and whatever. But it's funny how, meeting Jimmy like 15 years later and
Yeah,
finding out like
it's
that's how
it's
he
so
got his
true. It's so
entrepreneurial
true.
start
Again, you
too,
can't
is like
connect
the
the
same
dots
as
going
me.
forward.
Um, but yeah, like network marketing has like 75% of it figured out. But like Russell took that like direct response marketing, network
Yep.
marketing, affiliate marketing,
Yep.
masterminds, and like ascension, like the value ladder, and like just the way that he crafted everything into one complete, one of a kind. Like, dude, I don't know, like, I don't know how most people feel about it, but like, I don't put
Mm-hmm.
Russell in a different category than a Steve Jobs. Like, he's
He's done
a
some
one of
amazing
a
things.
kind in
Absolutely.
history genius. It's incredible. Yeah. No. And yeah, I think this is the
Yeah.
most we've ever talked about Russell Brunson, but that's where we met at the Funnel Hacking Live. So like,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
the
I've
common
been
ground
following
between
Russell for
us.
a long, long time. Yeah. I found out about him way back, I think it was early 2010 or something like that. It was when Tony Robbins did the New Money Masters series. And then he got on and he was talking about the potato gun and all that stuff way back
Okay.
in those days.
Yep.
And, the New Money Masters series with, gosh, spent money I didn't have getting the New Money Masters series. But I learned a lot of stuff. He had interviews with Jeff.
Okay.
It's so
Spent a
funny.
lot of
And,
money we
my
didn't
friends would go,
have
what
back
the
when we
hell are
were
you
first getting
doing,
started,
man?
right?
I mean, I would buy Nightingale Conant. I bought a Jay Abraham program tape.
Yeah.
Cassette tapes. My
Yep.
buddy thought he was my
$2,000,
roommate at the time. He thought I was
$5,000 for
out of my
things that
freaking
like,
mind. He's like,
yep.
what is this? And I said, this is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
I know. Exactly.
Either crazy or an idiot, right? Like I've teetered back and forth with people
Time will
literally
tell,
telling me to my face,
that's
like,
the
you are
thing.
a moron. Like you are getting scammed.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so
Get me
funny, but
now. Yep.
that's exactly right.
They're
That's
still
exactly
sitting
right.
on
Oh, I
that
never
same
got the
bar
brakes.
stool. They said that to me.
Oh,
Yeah.
I just, this happened and, I just it didn't work out, It's like, all right, man. Yeah, that's true.
That's right.
Yep.
That's true.
He
Oh
who
man.
seeks shall find.
Well, we've
Yep. Well, Chris, what's next for you, man? Like, I think we're coming up on time. We'll wrap up here, but what's next? What do you want the people to know? Leave them with a piece of wisdom from your experience, your entire life's experience. If you could, sum it up in one thing to tell the audience, what would it be? And then tell us,
Yeah.
what to
Well, I
expect
just
from
got
you
to
in the
tell you,
future,
this
where
has been a
people can
lot of
find
fun.
you, all
This
that
is
good stuff.
awesome. I've been on a lot of podcasts, and man, I tell you, I don't think I've
Love it.
had this much
Appreciate
fun.
you.
And I think we added a lot of value too, which is
Yeah, we
really
did.
important to me. And that is what I would say. I would say, figure
Yeah.
out a way to add value. I took my nephew out every year. I take my nephew out on a shopping spree for his birthday. And I was walking around with him and I said, hey, you ever think you want to be an entrepreneur? You ever think you want to own your own business? And he looked at me and he goes, that seems hard. He's 14.
How old is he? Okay. Yeah. My son's 16.
Yeah. Oh
Every
boy.
Sunday now I'm taking him out, teaching him
Yeah.
how to drive and
Yeah.
stuff.
So,
They grow up fast, man.
oh, that's fantastic.
I started my
That's
entrepreneurial
fantastic.
journey when he
I
was
mean, you
3.
got to have it in your blood.
Yep. So
That is.
I've got to spend so much time with him. It's such a blessing. Like,
Yeah.
compared to the 50, 60
Oh,
hours a
yeah.
week plus I was working the first 3 years of his life. And from 3 to 16 now for 13 years, I get to see him every day. Like, now he's a lot busier. He does track
That's
and,
cool.
he's got his whole social life.
That's
He's
so
got his
cool.
workout routine, everything. But, like I look back and I'm like, I only saw my dad one day a week, every Sunday.
Mm,
Um, and, he introduced me to Jim Rohn's teachings and a lot of things because he wanted to be able to duplicate himself and have the leverage of parenting me
that's
throughout
smart.
the week during the 6 days that he wasn't with me. So he used Jim Rohn and things like that to instill the values in me that he wasn't able to be in front of me to do on a
That's
consistent
awesome. You had
basis.
that foresight
So that
and
had a
the
huge
leverage. Boy,
impact on
Jim
me.
Rohn is a
But
good guy to learn from, for sure.
definitely is.
yeah,
Yeah, he's fantastic. Well, I would
yeah,
just say
still my
that
favorite.
I think a real turning point for me happened when I was in Invesco. They used to invest heavily in education, and they sent me to and personal development. It wasn't even business development necessarily. And they sent me to a class, and I took the Myers-Briggs personality indicator way back in my early 20s. And it was transformative, because I learned so much about who I am and about what my problem solving style is and how I am in the world. And I always thought there was kind of something weird with me, because I didn't like going out and talking to people like everybody else seemed to. And then when I figured out, I took my Myers-Briggs, and I figured, oh, you're an introvert. You get your energy from being by yourself. You get your energy, your world is kind of in your head. And it takes a lot of effort to go out and be around people and to talk and things like that. And it's not that it's bad. It's just that this is kind of how you're wired. And it's like, wow, this changed everything. And then figuring out how you take who you are and add value by solving problems. And I think if everybody could just be who they are and solve problems for other people by being who they are and doing what they're interested in, we would have an amazing world. We would have an amazing world.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
we'd be probably
that's
Yeah,
right.
just
maybe
a
Jesus,
decade
Jesus
or
could
less
just come
away
back,
from a
bro.
utopia, man.
Hey, we wouldn't need him, man. Everybody loved each other and was trying to help each other, But that's what makes my life interesting, is I get up and get to learn something today, and I get to share it with other people. So that's the big thing. And what you can expect from me is we're going to keep growing Technician Find. We want to help more shops. My firm belief, and the reason why I started this company, is I believe that when good techs connect with great shops, they do their best work, and we all benefit from safe and reliable vehicles. I believe that 100%. I don't want to place a good tech with a crappy shop, and I don't want to place a crappy tech with a good shop. I want to connect two great shops, and I believe in independence. I believe that independent mom and pop shops, they're the backbone of the economy, and independent mom and pop businesses are the backbone of the economy. They provide more employment opportunities than anyone else, and without those small businesses, we really wouldn't have the opportunities we have. So I really believe in that, and we're going to keep doing what we do. We're going to expand it out.
Yeah,
We're going to help more techs, and we're going to help more shops. That's really what we're going.
love it. Beautiful. And anybody who's watching or listening, if you are a shop owner, or if you know a shop owner, you already know what you can do to add value to either a friend as a shop owner, or add value to your business
Yeah.
if you are a shop owner.
Best
How
way
can people get in
is our
contact with you,
website.
Chris?
It's
What's the best way to reach out?
technicianfind.com. My email address is chris@technicianfind.com. And the best way to reach out to us is we've got a contact form on the website. You can just fill out a couple of things, and we can set up a strategy call. I love hopping on calls with shop owners and GMs and just, talking about their hiring strategy. I mean, a lot of times what's happened is they're just a couple of small tweaks,
Love it.
and they could start getting applications flowing again, and staff up their shop so they can continue to grow.
Yeah, you told me some pretty impactful data on what it's like to be a shop owner, and even
Absolutely.
just go a day without a technician,
Yeah, I could.
right? It's like pretty heavy on the business. So sounds like
Yeah.
you're solving big problems for people, and that's beautiful. Love it. We'll put all that information in the description on
Awesome.
YouTube, and on the podcast on the other platforms as well. Chris, it's been fun, man. Absolutely appreciate you coming on. We're gonna wrap it here. Hang back with us for a minute, because we need to make sure that the upload happens
Yep.
properly.
No problem.
If you leave, your stuff won't render. But
All right. See you
thanks for
guys.
everybody
Thanks, guys.
for listening and watching. We'll see you next time.